So let's jump right into it. I mean, I think the format's going to be we're going to talk about three different things
Yep.
and keep it short
Short.
and hopefully valuable. So the first thing we talk about is why we're a specialty coffee company. So why is a bag of specialty coffee more expensive than, say, Folgers or a bag of coffee I can get at Costco?
Yeah, I think the bottom line short answer is quality. Though there's a lot of answers though for that question. The first thing I would say is that Folgers specifically and coffees like that source Robusta or Robusta blends, which are mass harvested, mass imported, and are a lower quality. Costco, however, you can find a higher quality, mostly Arabica in whole bean bags, but also mass produced. Specialty coffee is often micro lots, so you're getting really curated coffees that have been hand picked, hand selected, really carefully curated, graded, inspected, quality quality assured. A lot of people have touched this coffee. A lot of people have tasted this coffee. A lot of this coffee has been profiled specifically to bring out exactly what the bean has to offer as far as flavor and quality.
Yeah, that's what I think about. I think you added one element I didn't consider, which is the difference between Arabica and Robusta
Oh yeah.
coffee
It's
and those
huge.
varietals. Because Robusta is definitely cheaper,
Yes.
right? And it's cheaper because it um, isn't as doesn't taste as good. Do you think that's why it's cheaper?
I don't think so. I
Because it's a
think
more robust plant.
yeah, it's a much more robust plant, which means that it's a little bit easier to grow and you get more beans per plant. So there is
Okay,
more available.
so it yields more.
It yields more. It's lower elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good qualities for Robusta. It's higher caffeine content, so that means the bugs don't like it as much. So that's an interesting fact.
Yeah, and there's even specialty Robusta. Most Robusta
Is not
is
specialty.
not specialty.
Right.
If you taste it in Folgers, it's not a specialty Robusta.
Not at all.
But going back to what makes a specialty coffee special,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of elements there that you hit on. Quality. And
Absolutely.
I think the labor that goes into that quality, because it's farmed in a certain way, right? There's a lot of labor that goes into the farming, the picking or the harvesting of the fruit. So people will go back and hit that tree several times to pick the fruit at its perfect ripeness, instead of just having a machine strip the tree. So you're getting a lot of labor there where people are picking the fruit or harvesting the fruit, and then it's the processing is extra labor. So they're separating anything that's not high quality
Right.
from something that is a lower quality, and then on top of that, it's scored and graded in country,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
then it's separated even more because specialty coffee is 80 points or above, and maybe we can talk about that in a minute. So, and then it goes to the importer, and then when we pick it, we're getting samples, and then we're roasting it, cupping it, scoring it ourselves, and then
Exactly.
when we finally do order a sample or or make an order on a coffee we want, then we have to profile it and roast it what we think is the best way to present that coffee. So really there's several segments or chains all the way down the line that where the goal is to produce a high quality coffee that scores 80 points or above. And so that's the objective part. So
Right.
I think the labor can be kind of subjective. But can you talk about, because you're a Q grader,
Right.
talk a little bit about the objective scoring of a coffee that makes it specialty, or above 80 points?
Right. I will summarize it. There's a lot of nuance to it and a lot of opinions about it. But I will say that scoring coffees means that people who have been trained to score coffees, who have been trained to communicate sensory experience on paper are tasting these coffees and scoring them for categories like body, acidity, aftertaste, flavor, sweetness, aroma, fragrance in a specific way so that it's pretty standard. And it's not that we are some kind of superheroes that can taste what other people can't taste. It's that we are just trained to communicate it. So I don't think that I necessarily have a more refined palate per se than someone else, but I have spent a lot of time studying flavor and the words that go along with it so that I can tell someone this is a very floral coffee, or this is a very berry-centric coffee, or this one has high acidity or low acidity, or this one has a bitter aftertaste, a long aftertaste, a short aftertaste. It's just that I can communicate it.
So how would you? So yeah, so that's a Q grader, right? Someone
Yep.
who's trained to
Evaluate coffee
evaluate
based on a standard.
coffee, whether it's green or roasted.
Yep.
Right. So would you go through the process of how would you grade a coffee from green all the way to roasted, and then what would make it, say, an 85 versus a 90?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is I look at what the coffee is. I look at the varietal. I look at the country that it comes from, so that I can get myself ready to know what it should taste like, what it should look like. And then when I receive the coffee, I weigh out 350 grams of it, and I pour it out onto a black mat, and I look for defects, and I'm looking for insect damage. I'm looking for broken beans. I'm looking for anything out of the ordinary that might change the flavor of the coffee, either a specific flavor defect or something that might go wrong in the roasting process. Because if you have broken beans, they're going to burn, and then you have charred coffee. So,
But you're also looking for fungus,
Absolutely.
insect damage.
Yep.
And in specialty coffee, you can't have some of those defects.
absolutely. And some of them are more severe than others. You're allowed to have a few little insect holes. It's a product of the environment. It's normal. But you can't have like chomped up beans that look like they're half gone because the insects have damaged them. You can't have any beans that have turned black. You can't have beans.
Well, why is that? What's a black coffee bean?
Yeah,
When
it's-
it's green, what's a full black? What is that?
Yeah, it is a bean that is going to really have an awful flavor in your cup. And you are not allowed any of those in specialty coffee.
So some of the green inspection is trying to prevent off flavors.
Yes.
And does any of it have to do with a health concern? Because I know a lot of people are concerned with that.
Yeah.
So, like, you could see coffee in the state of a green coffee where
Right.
there's mold,
Right.
fungus.
Yes.
Can you have any mold
No.
and it be a specialty coffee?
No, that's an
Can you-
automatic fail.
How about fungus?
Nope. Also
Also fail, right?
fail.
So there's some things that are automatic fails, so that here at Half Mile in our lab, when we're looking at samples and we receive samples from people, there's things that automatically, for us, make it not a coffee that we're going to roast and sell.
Right. Exactly.
And it's
And that
those.
happens often.
Right. Yes, it does happen. It happens often. And so, and then what about? So that's the green coffee. There's some
Yep.
objective standards we're looking for: defects, non-defects. Some defects are okay in small amounts, like insect holes.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to present off flavors.
Right.
And then some are not allowed. What about once it's roasted and you're cupping it, which is a brewing method where we put 15 grams, right?
In our roastery, we have 11 grams of
Okay, thank
coffee
you, yeah.
and a 200-gram cupping cup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I'm so spoiled because you set up the cuppings. I can't remember. So we set up a certain way to brew it, and then now the Q grader or QC element of
Yeah.
it is looking at flavor and body and acidity. And can you talk through some of those flavors that we're looking for, and then why would one coffee score over another, and talk a little bit about how floral and berry notes score higher than nutty, chocolatey kind of thing.
Okay. So when we put cups on the table for cupping, we usually do a five cups per coffee per sample, and that way. So again, we're looking for defects in the cup. So there's a defect called the potato defect, and that is not a defect you're going to see in the green. It is a defect you're going to taste in the cup, and so we want to make sure that there's no invisible defects in the cup, basically.
That's why we're scared of Burundis.
Which is, I
It's a
think,
great coffee.
somewhat unwarranted.
It's a great coffee.
It is a great coffee.
When you're not getting some kind of random potato defect.
But I would never speak badly of an entire region of coffee.
No, me neither. I'm just saying that's a cautionary tale for us.
Cautionary tale. We definitely are aware of that and cautious. We are looking for the best quality flavors we can find, and so often we'll pull a bunch of different coffees from the same region. So we'll get like 5 or 6 Nicaragua, for example, just to see if there's one that is superior to what we already are offering, or if there's something different that we can offer, or if it's going to match what we already have very well. So those are the 3 kind of things we do. And for florals, like an Ethiopian, often you're going to get Ethiopians from different regions at different times of the year. So one year you might have something from Idido, and then that will be all gone, and you have to find a different Ethiopian coffee from a different washing station, like, I don't know, Chelbasa or something. And so you have to pull those samples and taste them, and you're looking for those berry, floral, sweet flavors that are common in Ethiopia. And those, you're right, those tend to often score higher than the nutty, chocolatey flavors that are more common in coffee overall.
So could a Brazil ever score higher than an Ethiopian? Because Brazils present chocolatey, nutty,
Right.
And which make them great. You know, I really like that. I think they're great for espresso.
Yeah.
As a base.
Right.
But you know, they're never going to present with jasmine and rose petal. So
No,
I mean,
tea
so
like
would they
sweetness.
ever? Is that a
No.
bias that we have in
Yes.
the coffee industry
I
that
don't
will
know.
always score
Yeah.
a floral coffee higher?
Right. At the moment it is, but again, coffee tastes change over time, and value changes over time, and even in the wide world of coffee right now, they're changing the evaluation form. So it is so incredibly new that we don't know how it's going to change coffee scoring, if at all. So we'll see. I can't say that a Brazil would never score higher than an Ethiopian, but at this point, if the chocolate and nutty flavors do often not score as high as like the Geisha Village coffee estates.
Yeah, unless it's something unique, like our friends at Roast House up in Spokane.
Oh, they're amazing.
They had shout out to Aaron and the guys. So we had a Brazil there that was crazy amazing, that had a lot of the floral and fruit flavors in it, and I think it kind of shifted a paradigm in my mind for that origin. Mm-hmm. So I guess you could get something like that scores higher, but it's just rare.
You never know.
Just rare.
You never know. And that's why we taste coffees all the time. We're always looking for those, wow coffees.
Yeah, and we do a lot of work. So that's the other thing. We do a lot of work here behind the scenes that people don't see.
Right.
To make sure that the coffees that we have are worth the money you spend, right? Because, I mean, for us, we're back to the original question, specialty coffee costs more.
Right.
And that's because of all of the quality checks, because it's got objective scoring.
Right.
And because, so say you're buying an Ethiopian from us, which is super underpriced at $21. I mean, quite frankly, that's an amazing coffee. So
it is so good.
When you're getting that coffee for $21 for 12 ounces, it's a way better experience in the cup than say a Costco coffee that's $10 for a pound, because the quality's better, it's curated better, and objectively it's a better coffee,
Yes,
because
for
you're not
sure.
having the defects.
Absolutely.
So if you're into good tasting coffee without defects like mold and fungus and a lot of
Insect
insect
damage.
damage, then specialty coffee is something you should be pursuing. And it's
Right.
easier than ever to get specialty coffee. When we first started drinking good coffee and I was roasting it, you couldn't just order it on the internet. You could order green coffee, and that's when I started roasting it. So I could get green specialty coffee in small amounts, but I couldn't get roasted like we
Right.
could now. So it's kind of a phenomenal time to be getting into specialty coffee. Well, and just one last thing before we move on to another segment, Q grading.
Yeah.
How important, well, we talked about what a Q grader is, right? You
Right.
can objectively score coffee and you're
Yeah.
trained to do that. And it's kind of an industry hallmark, right? It's an industry certification, because Q graders are the ones that score it so that it can be evaluated and really priced.
Yep.
How important is that for a roastery to have a Q grader? Like, maybe talk a little bit about why we invested in that,
Yeah.
because it is a big investment in
Of time and
time and
money.
money.
Yeah.
Why is that important? And then, for cafe owners that are looking for wholesalers, or for customers
Right.
that are buying retail off a website, how would they know if a company has a Q grader, and if it is important?
Right. So I'll answer the how do you know if a company has a Q grader? There is a Q grader database online that is fully public and searchable. It's a little clunky, but we can link that to in the show notes, and you can just put that producer's name in the search bar and find out if they have a Q grader. So there's Q graders for. It's interesting if you look at the database.
What's the website they would do that on?
It's called the CQI database, but we'll link to it.
Coffee Quality Institute.
Coffee
If they
Quality
just Googled
Institute.
that, they'd probably find it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and it's searchable.
Okay. So that's how you'd know.
Yep.
Why is it important? Because this is even debated in the industry.
It is
Do you
debated
have
in
to
the-
have a Q
yeah.
grader to be a specialty coffee roaster?
Yes.
I certainly have an opinion on it. What's your opinion? Should a specialty coffee company have a Q grader?
It is a huge asset to have a Q grader because of the amount of education that a Q grader has. You spend a lot of time developing a skill set, which is inspecting coffee and tasting coffee, communicating coffee, filling out the forms properly to a standard. You're evaluated, you are graded as a Q grader on your ability to do this. And in the Q grader system, it's difficult to pass these tests. So you have to be pretty motivated to accomplish that certification. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that you can get these skills from other places. Specialty Coffee Association has a lot of great classes too, and a lot of great certifications. Certifications are always a good sign. And it gives you the ability to pull a sample that somebody else might say is specialty, but you don't know how they've evaluated that. There's no certification body that says something is a specialty coffee. There's no stamp of like, this organization, certifies that this is specialty coffee, except for the Q system, and not very many people actually go through the process of officially Q grading their coffees right now.
Yeah, and where we are, so there's only 2 in Idaho, and you're
Right.
one of them.
Right.
So we think about that. The whole state of Idaho, there's only 2 people out of all the coffee companies that are Q grading their coffee. And so that kind of blows me away a bit, because we could go to an importer who says they're a specialty importer, and we've done
Yes,
this.
we've done this.
And we've received coffee from them,
And it fails.
and it's failed. I mean, straight up defects that are not allowed to be in that 300 gram sample, but they're not going to give you a score. That's the other thing. I think the consumer should know. If I'm a roaster and I go to a importer and I'm like, well, I'm buying from a specialty importer, they may price that coffee like it's specialty,
And
but
right.
they won't give me a score.
Right.
I don't know, outside of maybe Genuine Origin, that
Right.
gives me a cupping score on their
Right.
website. There's no importers or partners that we work with that will give us a score. So we can either buy it blind and hope for the best, or we could actually get it and have you or someone that's, competent and certified
Right.
to grade that coffee so that the consumer, because that's what's super important to us and part of our value of hospitality, is that we have to have done the work so that when we're selling something as specialty coffee at a price that is listed like specialty coffee pricing, that we can actually say that we've graded it in a way that's at the industry standard.
Yes. Yep.
So you feel like it's important.
I think it's very important. I think
Yeah.
it just helps the roaster, the roastery, or whoever's buying your coffee be sure that you are getting what you're paying for and that your customer's getting what they're paying for.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch it up. Question number 2.
Yep.
There's been a lot of questions, but
I know.
I guess segment number 2.
Yeah.
All right, I'm new to this. I'm new to specialty coffee. I stumble upon, say, the Half Mile Coffee website, halfmilecoffee.com.
And you say, wow.
I say, wow. I say, wow. I say, all right, how do I pick a specialty coffee
Yeah.
and a brewing method if I'm new to this? And then, so that's one part. And then I'll challenge you. Maybe we go a little deeper. So you're a total coffee nerd.
Yeah.
What would you tell me about maybe pushing into coffee brewing and selection a little bit? How would you challenge me if I've been ordering specialty coffee for a year or two?
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's a hard question. Let's
start with a new person first.
Yeah. All right.
How do I pick a specialty coffee? They all look so great.
I think if you're on our website, it's very easy because we have a lot of options for you to sort through. So you can choose by roast level if you want a light roast, medium roast, or dark roast. Light roasts are going to be a lot more aromatic and floral and a little bit lighter bodied. Medium roasts are going to be a little bit more body, a little bit more intensity of flavor, and then your darker roasts are going to give you that chocolatey, nutty, more developed body, thicker body than the
little smokier,
the others.
maybe.
Yeah, smokier, really more intensity, especially if you're a cream and sugar person. The darker roasts are probably better.
So when you say intensity,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that?
So I guess strength. You would say strength. A lot of people would say it's a strong
That's a
cup or a
strong
bold coffee.
Right.
So stronger, I think, would be a more less jargony term. Intensity is what we use, in the industry.
It's an industry term, intensity. Yeah, but even for me, like sometimes I need to define that. Like, what are people
Right.
talking about when
Right.
you're talking? Because you could be talking intensity of acidity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like the CVA form, when we're
Right.
cupping, everything has an intensity,
Yes.
right? So yeah, but I like that. It's a little bit bolder, a little
Bolder.
stronger.
Yep. It's going to stand up to milk and sugar.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so if I'm new and I'm used to drinking Starbucks, say.
Yeah.
If I'm jumping into a light roast, what do I got to know about that?
I think we do a good job communicating what the flavor profile is going to be in our tasting notes. We give you 3 tasting notes. Even though there might be more that we can detect, we're only going to give you 3 because we don't want to overwhelm people or make people feel like, well, I didn't taste that. Some of it's subjective and some of it depends, like you said, on your brew method. But look for the flavor notes, and if you know in yourself that you're a chocolatey nutty person, you're going to want to look for that on the flavor notes. So you're looking for dark chocolate or toffee or caramel. Those are more roasty flavors. And if you know you like fruity floral coffees, then you're looking for berry notes, floral notes, fruity notes, like our Ethiopian is berry. The Ethiopian blend that we have is dark chocolate cherry kind of.
Yeah.
So, but check the flavor notes on the back,
Okay.
on the label.
And then how would you suggest they brew them the first time?
Honestly, you have to start with where you are. What brew method do you already own? It is very easy to spend a lot of money in this
Yeah.
in the coffee space. So if you have a Mr. Coffee, use your Mr. Coffee. If you have a K cup, you need to go get one of those little refillable thingies that you can put coffee in. Make sure you're paying attention to your grind. That's probably the most important thing. The two most important things are your grind. So really, it's worthwhile to go get yourself a good burr grinder and get rid of your spice grinder or blade grinder.
Why is that? Why is that?
You just get a consistent grind.
Yeah, they're all the same size, right? Versus a blade grinder, you don't know what you're going to get, big chunks, little chunks.
Yeah,
and it becomes inconsistent.
Yeah, and you're grinding by time.
Right, and you can't repeat it.
Exactly, it's not
Okay.
repeatable.
So-
Yeah. So get a good grinder and then take care of your water. What are you putting in your coffee machine? If you're putting in tap water, you're doing two things. You are damaging your machine with lime scale and things, and then you are also incorporating potentially off flavors.
What if I like the flavor note of chlorine
Then
with
you
my
know what? Drink what you
Ethiopian?
like.
I'm detecting a jasmine and a strawberry and a swimming pool.
No, you're kidding. Nobody likes that.
Nobody likes
No, but honestly, yeah. Even if you're just putting it through the Brita, that's a good step. But bottled water, I know that's like serious, which would be like spring water and not filtered water. And there's a really great filter called a BWT Penguin filter, and it's like a Brita, but it actually takes the lime scale out of your
Yeah,
water.
that's what we use because the water here in Moscow, Idaho will destroy everything in its path.
It does. It's so bad.
It's just
So-
hard. It's very hard.
So take care of your water situation, and grind size.
And weighing it. What about weighing it?
Oh, that's a big one.
Right? The ratios of water to coffee should be pretty correct.
Yeah, and you can just go pick up a cheap scale at Walmart that can measure grams,
Yeah.
and you just want to measure your grams. I like 60 grams to 1,000 milliliters of water.
What's 1,000 milliliters of water?
It's
in American.
in American.
In American speak. In
It's a.
is it
Is it
imperial? In imperial. It's 1,000 grams? No, 100 grams. No.
No, 1,000 grams. Grams and
1,000
milliliters
grams?
are
Yeah, that was what I was looking for,
interchangeable.
right? Yeah.
It's one mason jar full of water. Like it's two.
You can't say
a
that.
pint-
Mason jars are all different sizes.
I know it's like one.
I was
medium
looking
kind.
for that because I always get
It's like 4
confused.
cups
When people
ish.
say 1,000 milliliters, I'm like, I'm on grams, not milliliters. I
Yeah.
don't want a water measurement. I want a weight measurement, right?
It's about
So-
4 8-ounce cups of water. On your coffee machine, you should measure. If you have a Mr. Coffee, measure how many ounces their cup is, because a lot of times they're
6
estimating
ounces.
a 6-ounce cup, and they're calling 6 ounces a cup. So there's all kinds of like funky, unstandard measurements happening in this coffee brewing situation. So
Yeah. I like what you're saying. I think that is wise to start with the brewing method you have.
yeah.
And that's why on our website we put a brewing guide for just your standard coffee maker. And I think that's a good place to start. If you're brand new to the game too, I mean, you could do a pour over. We have a guide on a pour over. We could buy a pour over on our site that we like it's a Kalita Wave model with a steel filter. Some people don't mind the paper filter. I don't like a paper filter. I like a steel filter.
Yeah.
That's just how I am.
I love
Unless
the
it's
Chemex.
unless it's a
filter.
Chemex. Chemex filters do a good job.
It's my favorite.
So if you have a little bit more money and you want to tinker, right?
Yeah.
And you're a gadget person, then you can get a pour over. But I always would recommend to people buy something fruity, like our Ethiopian.
Yes.
And then buy something nutty and chocolatey, like a Brazil or Nicaragua, and so that, because people usually fall down on, I really like fruity coffees, or I like nutty chocolatey coffees.
Yeah, the pendulum's
And
swinging back to that chocolatey nutty.
Yeah, so kind of that's a good way to gauge who you are.
Right.
Get one of each and kind of brew them, and then figure out. Or you're like me, I like both. It just depends, right? In the morning, I don't want a Geisha Village coffee.
Oh, I do.
I mean, we did the other morning because it was your birthday.
It was my birthday.
The birthday, and we had a Geisha Village for a treat. So I like the, Johnny Lunch Pail, like chocolatey, nutty coffee in the morning. I even put if I can put a little heavy cream in it, I like it. What I like about the specialty coffee, because you're not ruining it, I think it brings out some of those flavors of chocolate and stuff. And I just like the fact that with a specialty coffee roasted correctly, you're not getting the harsh bitterness. You're getting the full flavor. And so I usually do that. And then in the afternoon, it's either espresso for me or like if I'm going to do a pour over, it's going to be in the afternoon. So you got to kind of figure out how you like to do it. If you're going to do it, are you going to do it at your office, or you work from home? So that would be my recommendation.
Yep.
Buy one of each of those.
Yep. And I'm a huge fan of the AeroPress. That's probably a really inexpensive, really small footprint, travel ready brewer that almost always does an excellent job, unless I screw it up somehow.
And it's super easy.
So easy, yeah.
And I've got to say, some of the best cups of coffee I've ever had have come out of an AeroPress.
In a hotel room.
Right. So everybody talks about the God shot, right? Or the
Yeah.
which is kind of the perfect shot of espresso, if you don't know what that is. I'm always chasing the perfect cup of coffee, and it's always just one more cup of coffee away. And then every once in a while it hits you when it's not expected. So we were in Seattle in a hotel room, and you pre-ground a bunch of Yirgacheffe, Ethiopian Yirgacheffe.
I did. It was our iDido.
Yeah, the iDido we have. And we brought it with us.
And it sat in a paper bag for, a long time, like a couple days.
Yeah, all the things you're not supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And then I did an AeroPress with it, and I swear it was with microwaved water in a hotel.
It was spring water, yeah.
Yeah, but it was microwaved, right, to heat it up.
Yeah, we had no idea what the temperature was exactly.
Yeah, no idea. And so, which is also frustrating because I can't replicate it. But I swear that was the best cup of coffee I've had in probably 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm always chasing that next best cup of coffee.
In a paper cup. No, I brought mugs.
Yeah, we brought mugs. You're always good about that when we travel. You bring the whole kit.
I do.
And
as long as I can fit it in my, if we're driving, it's easier.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because otherwise I'd be hunting down a spot or drinking bad coffee.
Oh, the hotel room coffee. Yeah, Jay drinks the
awful.
Hotel room coffee. He drinks the church coffee.
I will drink bad coffee in a pinch.
And then he'll say, would you like a sip? And I'm like, no.
No.
We got a good cup of
I'm
coffee.
trying to stay grounded. I'm trying to stay grounded.
I had a good cup of coffee at Denny's.
No way.
I did. Remember?
Here in town?
No,
that was IHOP.
Yeah.
Well, IHOP in Portland.
Portland, yeah.
Because they were
Shocking.
using a local roaster.
Was it local? It was called Royal.
It was yeah.
But I didn't figure out where.
It was a local roaster.
It was good.
So that's kind of some of the quirky things you can run into when it's a coffee town.
I know. And I was expecting just diner, Robusta.
You were
and I was
bracing yourself.
I was like, whoa.
This
is okay.
No, this was Seattle.
Was it Seattle?
It was Seattle because we were.
Oh yeah, because we
were
were
with the kids and we just went to the baseball game.
That's right. And
It
we
was the
passed by,
morning
it was
after the
right down the
baseball game.
street from Starbucks corporate.
Yeah, and so I think I think it was so Royal, the importers,
Right.
Royal Coffee.
Do they have a
I
coffee?
think they have a roasting room,
Oh,
and
okay.
part of their business model is also roasting coffee and I think
Right.
wholesaling it.
Well, if anybody knows for sure, then put it in the comments.
Yeah, let us know. But
It was good.
it was surprising because I even tried it. It was surprisingly good coffee and
Mm-hmm.
good for IHOP sourcing some
I
local
know.
roasting coffee and doing it right.
Yeah.
So it was
That
surprising.
one anyway, that particular IHOP.
All right, final segment.
Okay.
One of our core values is innovation.
Oh.
So let's talk about
Yes.
an innovation, not per se from this era. Maybe. I don't know when this particular
Oh,
thing
yeah,
was
you're going to
created.
test me.
Yeah. So let's talk about the innovation of the flavor wheel.
I happen to have a flavor wheel in my pocket.
And did this come?
Here.
This came later than the wine flavor wheel,
Yes.
probably, or what about the whiskey? Do we even know?
I
What are all
I
the
don't
flavor
know.
wheels out there?
Yeah, so flavor wheels, I think there's definitely wine. Wine was the first flavor wheel. Coffee came out of that one. There is a whiskey flavor wheel, a beer flavor wheel, and there might be a tobacco flavor wheel. If there's not, there should be.
Yeah.
So, the coffee flavor wheel was developed after, like I just said, after the wine flavor wheel, and I believe it is a product of UC Davis sensory science.
Oh,
There is also the World Coffee Lexicon, World Flavor Lexicon. That is another integration. I'm going to link in the show notes a interactive flavor wheel that connects the lexicon, which is like the encyclopedia of flavors, and the coffee flavor wheel. The cool thing about the flavor wheel is that it has concentric circles. So
If you're watching this on
if you're watching this,
YouTube, you can see this.
otherwise, so imagine a big circle, and inside the circle are different color wedges. Closer to the center of the circle are larger wedges, and those larger wedges represent main flavors like fruity or vegetal or roasted, spices, sweet. So those are main categories, and in a circle outside of that circle are other wedges, and those will be more specific. So under floral, you have another floral wedge, but like black tea, and then beyond that, you have specific florals like rose or jasmine. So it goes from least specific to most specific. And it is a good tool to just help communicate to yourself and to other people what you're tasting in a cup of coffee, or really anything else. You can apply this idea to anything that you're eating, anything that you're smelling, anything that you're drinking, and it really helps you to appreciate it more. We have very few flavor words in English, and it's not something that we focus on, and so we feel like we're not good at it, but it's just because it's not something our culture really spends time on. We spend a lot more time on emotional descriptors and tactile descriptors and other, we have a lot of words for other senses, what we see, colors, but not for flavors.
Yeah, I think that's what was so helpful about this as an innovation for me is that, like you said, we can detect a lot of flavors, but
Yeah,
we
like
just can't describe them.
billions.
Yeah, we just can't describe them. And
Exactly.
so for me, when I first started doing sensory was very difficult for me when I was doing my certification and classes is, having that first check mark. Okay, it's floral.
Right.
Okay. And what you're really tasting is the coffee flower, right? But it can present in a few different ways, right?
Yeah, depending on
Jasmine
the
or-
processing.
Right. I tend to detect it as jasmine.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because living in California,
Yep.
always had jasmine,
Yep.
right?
At night,
Yeah,
you could
at
smell it.
night. So it was just always like right there as a sensory memory. And so I think what I like about this is it checks that first box. All right, floral, berry, chocolatey.
Right.
And then you take it a next step. Okay, well, it's berry. What berry is it? Is
Right.
it a blueberry? Is
Right.
it a red berry? Is it, and then it goes even
Is it
further.
cherry?
Yeah, is it cherry? And then it's like, okay, is it a fresh fruit or fresh berry? Is
Right.
it cooked berry?
Right. Or dried.
Dried berry? And the more, and I would just say to people, the more you work on it, the better you get.
Right.
And then it becomes super fun because then you can see again who's just putting trendy names on stuff, or as our friend Valerian would say, making stuff up, and what is who's actually putting descriptors on there that you could detect.
So it's fun to read all the verbose descriptors on certain websites. Like it tastes like a rain-soaked day walking through the woods.
Yes.
And it's like, really? What is that?
Oh, I want to drink that, a rain-soaked day in the woods. That sounds fantastic.
So,
Yeah, it's funny. Or like candy, right? People say it's like, candied apple.
right.
And you're like, oh, well, what does that mean? Do I get the citric,
Right.
like the malic acid
Malic,
from an apple? Am I getting sugar with that?
Right. Toffee, caramel.
Yeah, what is
yeah.
that?
Yeah. So you can kind of discern those. That's a better descriptor. I would accept that. I think that's a good one.
I think that's what we use for one of our pepes. Is
Yes,
a candied
we do,
apple.
candied apple.
And the cool thing about the pepe is, depending on the brew temperature, this is probably one
Only
of
the Thai oxy, yeah.
Yeah, the Thai oxy. What is cool about that one is it changes so drastically based on brew temperature
Yep.
that it
It's-
makes it super fun.
It's moody. I call it
Yeah.
the mood ring of coffee.
It is. It's
Yeah.
really neat.
Yeah.
Because, like, we would both say, like, I like it at 190
Yeah.
or 195 degrees.
Yeah.
But you like it, and I don't like it at 212, right? Because
Yes.
it becomes more savory than sweet,
Yep.
right? And so
Yeah, it's very fascinating.
it is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, coffee is just so complex.
Yep.
And so that's where I think that's what's helpful about the flavor
Flavor
wheel
wheel.
for me is
Yeah.
it kind of gives me the vocabulary to express it or describe it.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to use. It'd be fun to like get the interactive flavor wheel with a group of people and, just taste some coffees.
We kind of did that the other night with wines.
We did.
So we did a
It was
wine
fun.
blending. A friend of ours invited us over. They went to
A winery.
a winery in Washington State, I think Walla Walla.
Yep.
And there's a college there, and that has some education on wine. And they had a bunch of Bordeaux's, which I guess I'm not a wine guy, but I'm starting to learn. So Bordeaux is a particular region in France, and there's an east and a west bank where different grapes grow. And this is where you get your Cabernet Sauvignons, your Cabernet Francs, right?
Yep.
Your Merlots. And we did a blending, and it was very much like coffee, like when you blend for coffee, because a lot of people would think you blend coffee, and I'll circle this back to the flavor wheel, I promise. So
Okay.
we're looking for flavors that complement each other.
Yep.
So there's flavors in a Brazil that you just can't get out of an Ethiopian, right?
Yep, and
there's
vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa. And then there's, like Honduras or Guatemala have different flavors or characteristics. And sometimes it's fun to put those together because you take something that's already super complex and you're just adding complexity to it and depth. And particularly when you're talking about espresso, people want espresso a certain way. And so, I mean, we have lots of friends that do single origin espressos and like Ethiopian,
Right.
Or even our trailhead, the way we do it, because we do it a darker and a lighter. And again, we blend because it's two different roasts, even though it's the same origin, because you can change the character of that coffee. And so, and that's where, you kind of see, instead of a coffee can hit the flavor wheel in one, say 3 to 9, if you're looking at it like a clock, right? I don't even
Yeah.
know what's 3 to 9, so it could be bad
That's
flavors.
like no, bad flavors are like at your 6 o'clock.
Or 6, so stay away from 6 o'clock. Okay, so in my illustration, so or my example, so you could have a very narrow band of that flavor wheel, but then you start blending or adding different origins, and now you're getting a wide spectrum. So you could open it up
Yeah.
to like a 3 to 9 o'clock, and have all kinds of things that complement each other. So because a strawberry's great, but when you dip a strawberry in chocolate, it's a
Yeah.
different kind of thing.
Definitely.
And that's kind of what you can do with coffee, right? Add a
Yep.
Brazil that's chocolatey, with a Honduras that's got a little citrus, and then a berry flavored Ethiopian, and you have Legacy, which is which is very different than if you just had the Ethiopian.
Yep, for sure.
And I think that's, again, doing it well, blend well, is I think a byproduct of sensory
Yeah.
exercises, sensory education that we've done, but also being able to look at the spectrum on the flavor wheel.
Yeah, and one of the things we do differently in our company, Half Mile, that I've seen other people than how I've seen other people do it is we are transparent about what is in our blends. And other people will just give you, this is your breakfast blend, but there's nowhere on the package that tells you what they're actually using in it. And because we have a commitment to using specialty coffee all the time, even in our blenders, we tell you that we're using, a particular origin in our blends. And, we'll change it when we change out that coffee. So right now in Legacy, we're using Brazil. Brazil is a tough coffee right now. They've had 2 really hard years, and we only have one source for an exceptional specialty Brazil. But we keep finding these fantastic Mexicans, and we've tried it in Legacy, and it's actually really, really good. And so we're considering at some point taking the Brazil out maybe and putting a Mexican in. And when we do that, we'll adjust the label so that you know.
Yeah. Well, the other challenge really has been finding a Brazil that's good
Specialty,
enough.
exactly. We can, like I said, we only have one source for that, and it's pretty pricey.
It is pricey,
but it's
right
worth
now.
it.
It's pricey right now. Coffee prices are up. So
Yeah.
So I think we've already made the decision. That's what we're going to have to do because
I've tasted so many Brazils.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up there.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Hey, we appreciate it. This is our first podcast.
Yep.
Appreciate if you like it, share it with friends of yours, and leave any comments or questions in
the comments.
In the comments, leave a comment in the comment.
Yeah, and we'll link to the interactive flavor wheel. We'll link to the CQI database. We'll link to ourselves, obviously, and we'll link to our newsletter. Sign up if you want to sign up for our newsletter once a month. Really great info, and you get a free brew guide if you sign up for our newsletter.
Yeah. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or catching this on a podcast service, we appreciate you taking the time to listen to it and share it with your friends.
Yeah.